Welcome to OLevels Economics Unit 39, the current account of the balance of payments. It is one of the most important measures of a country's economic relationship with the rest of the world. The balance of payments is a record of all economic transactions that take place between the residents of a country and other countries over a period of time, usually a year. These transactions are carried out by individuals, businesses, and governments. Money entering the country is recorded as a credit item, while money leaving the country is recorded as a debit item. The current account is the best known section of the balance of payments and shows the income received from abroad and the expenditure made on foreign countries. It is divided into four main components: trade in goods, trade in services, primary income, and secondary income. Trade in goods includes exports and imports of physical products such as food, machinery, and cars. If export earnings are greater than import spending, there is a trade in goods surplus, but if imports exceed exports, there is a trade in goods deficit. Trade in services records payments for services such as banking, tourism, transport, and insurance. If a country earns more from selling services abroad than it spends on foreign services, it experiences a trade in services surplus. Together, trade in goods and services form the balance of trade. The third component of the current account is primary income, which includes wages, salaries, profits, dividends, and interest earned from abroad, minus the income paid to foreigners. For example, profits sent back to the home country by multinational companies are recorded as debit items, while dividends earned from foreign investments are credit items. The fourth component is secondary income, which includes transfers where nothing is received in return, such as foreign aid, charitable donations, and workers' remittances. In many developing countries, money sent home by workers abroad forms a very important part of secondary income. When the balances of all four components are added together, the result is the current account balance. A current account surplus occurs when credit items are greater than debit items, while a current account deficit occurs when debit items exceed credit items. There are several factors that influence exports and imports and therefore affect the current account balance. One important factor is inflation. If a country has a high inflation rate, its products become more expensive compared to foreign products, making exports less competitive and imports more attractive. Lower inflation improves competitiveness and can increase exports while reducing imports. Exchange rates also play a major role. A fall in the exchange rate makes exports cheaper and imports more expensive, encouraging exports and discouraging imports. Productivity is another important factor, because more productive workers reduce production costs and make products cheaper and more competitive internationally. The quality of products also matters since consumers around the world prefer high-quality goods and services. Marketing can influence export sales as effective advertising and branding help firms compete globally. Domestic incomes affect imports, because when incomes rise at home, people buy more products, including imported goods. Foreign incomes also matter, because when incomes abroad rise, foreigners can buy more exports. Trade restrictions such as tariffs and quotas can either limit or encourage trade depending on government policies. A current account deficit can arise for several reasons. High domestic incomes and low foreign incomes can increase imports while reducing exports, creating what is called a cyclical deficit. A high exchange rate can also lead to a deficit because exports become expensive and imports become cheap. Structural problems may also cause long-term deficits. These include low productivity, poor product quality, high production costs, or ineffective marketing strategies. A deficit can also result if more primary income and secondary income leave the country than enter it. The consequences of a current account deficit can be both positive and negative. A deficit may suggest that a country is consuming more than it is producing, meaning it is living beyond its means. However, imports can also reduce inflationary pressure by lowering aggregate demand for domestic products. Despite this, a persistent deficit can reduce domestic output and employment, because more goods are being imported instead of produced locally. The significance of a current account deficit depends on its size, duration, and cause. A small short-term deficit is usually not a major problem and may correct itself over time. For example, if a country imports raw materials and machinery, these may later help firms increase production and exports. A deficit may also place downward pressure on the exchange rate, causing the currency to depreciate. This makes exports cheaper and imports more expensive, helping to reduce the deficit. However, deficits caused by a lack of international competitiveness are more serious because they are unlikely to correct themselves automatically. In such cases, governments may need to introduce supply-side policies to improve productivity, lower costs, and raise product quality. A current account surplus can arise due to factors such as a low exchange rate, high-quality products, low production costs, high incomes abroad, strong investment income from overseas assets, and large workers' remittances. A surplus increases aggregate demand because more money enters the economy than leaves it. This can lead to higher real GDP and employment, although if the economy is already operating near full capacity, it may also cause demand pull inflation. A surplus also means that the country is producing more than it is consuming. Under a floating exchange rate system, a current account surplus may cause the currency to appreciate because demand for the country's currency increases. Governments usually aim for balance of payments, stability, and try to avoid large and persistent deficits or surpluses. To reduce a current account deficit, governments may use policies to reduce imports and increase exports. These include import restrictions, export subsidies, and lowering the exchange rate. Governments may also use contractionary fiscal and monetary policies, such as raising taxes or increasing interest rates, to reduce consumer spending and imports. In the long run, supply side policies are often considered the best solution because they improve international competitiveness by increasing productivity and product quality. To reduce a current account surplus, governments may use the opposite measures, such as encouraging currency appreciation or using expansionary fiscal and monetary policies to increase spending on imports. Thanks for watching.